Hello, friends. Interview makes us all nervous, and it rightly does so, because our career and so many things are at stake uh, with respect to what is going to come in the interview. So many times when we Google or try to find any resource on the interviews, we only get the interviewee side of the things, like what questions were asked and how many he was able to answer and his side of experience. But today we are going to speak to a senior consultant specialist in HSBC, Mr. Anubhav Rawat. He is going to share the other side of the story, like what an interviewer expects his candidate to do in interviews. So what should be his attitude, what kind of question he should be ready to tackle or he should be able to tackle to get through. So he's working as a QA specialist in quality assurance role. He's a senior automation engineer working on the senior consultant role. So let's take it to Anubhav. Hi, Anubhav.
Hey, hi Dinesh. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm honored to have you here with us. So so you work in HSBC software development, right?
Yes,
its office is in Pune, Yerwada.
Right.
So can you just briefly give us your introduction, like your background, your experience, and the current trend in the fintech domain? Like you have HSBC as you're working in a financial organization. So what is the current trend there?
Okay, so I'll just introduce myself. So hi everyone, I'm Anubhav Singh Rawat and I work at HSBC as a senior consultant specialist, majorly around the automation domain. So automation has been my specialization always. But yes, it's never been more, attached to a specific tech. So I've been moving around different techs from initially started as manual tester to moving to .NET as an SDET, then to UFT. Test complete means tools have been a lot. As of now, exploring Python and Rundeck a lot. So, it's more of a journey that you always intake. But then the core inside you, if you are an automation tester, the core inside you always remains to ensure that, you are reducing the manual overhead and you try to, see that your team can do much better instead of, spending time on a lot of mundane tasks. So that's been always my focus, and that's where I'm always focused within my team also, and within the company also. Yes, and to your second question around sorry, what was the second question? If you can repeat that.
Like, what is the generic trend in financial organizations right now?
Right. So, financial organizations have moved a lot. So there was a time when they were, pretty much obsessive about what they have, and they were very much linked to a legacy trend. As of now, financial tech are moving ahead, and they have adopted a lot of DevOps. They are moving to cloud, though initially cloud was considered to be a bit non-safe because of the data integrity and everything. But yes, they have adopted to it. They even have adopted to going in an internal cloud or an external cloud with Google or Amazon or different cloud services, even Azure. So yes, the trend has been different, and that also picks up a lot of things around the automation bit, right? Because from an automation point of view, now you have to be more vigilant because everything is coming in place, right? Even cybersecurity is coming into place, and that's where you are even more integrating your things. Moreover, a lot of things around runbook automation kind of things, where you try to own your own infrastructure and you are doing different things within your Unix or Windows platform, which initially was considered to be more of we would just say, oh, this is something that a Unix SA or a DBA would do. But if you see the current trend, everything is something that is owned by the team, and that's where most of the financial organizations are moving. Also, they are going a lot like a normal product development company would.
Right. So just talking about the structure of the team generally, the automation team. So the team generally comprises of how many people, and is anybody responsible for a specific area, or is responsible for right from front end to back end to database, and everything has to be coded by one person?
Okay, so there was a time when you used to have big automation teams, right? And I have been part of that, where we used to have somewhere around 10 or 12 guys just doing automation stuff. As of now, things have changed a lot. Now you only find one or two guys who are actually doing the automation stuff within the team. But then, as I said, that now automation is not really concentrated on if I am a UFT guy, or I am a test complete guy, or I am a majorly a API guy. It's not like that. The current trend is that everyone should be doing everything. So even if developers uh, cooperation with the automation itself has increased a lot as compared to before. So before, UI automation was one of the biggest things. Why? Because that time developer integration was not much. Think with agile and DevOps, the good thing is that everyone has come in at the same plate. So a single now automation is more of everything. So you do API automation, the same guy is doing API automation, he's also doing UI automation. If required, he's doing DB automation. If required, he's also writing Unix scripts. If required, he's also writing SQL scripts. So and that's a good thing, because now it's not like that automation is considered to be XX thing for XX persons. Now it's like he's an automation guy and he should be aware of everything. So that increases your scopes, and that also helps move ahead the line, because before at the end of the day, when it comes to testing automation, everything was like you become a test manager. But now, since you are having different roles, you can even go to a different role set. It's not just a BA or a test manager that you can become. You can even take up a dev team and handle it, because now, as I said, that you have integrated a lot with the dev team. So for now, it's easy for you to progress. You might not be able to give them a complete technical solution on the dev side, but at least you will be able to manage the dev team, which is a good thing.
Right, and also helps you to zero down on exact issue, like you should fix that part of the area.
Right.
Okay. So starting from the resume itself, like, so if you have 25 to 30 resumes and you have to pick 5 or 10 of them, like what do you look into the resume? How should a candidate prepare his resume? How many pages do you expect it to be? Sometimes we see a very large resume with 5-7 pages. Do you go to each of these pages to read what he has worked on?
No, so see, my focus has been pretty simple. So first is what the requirement exactly is within the team. So if let's say, generally that's the first discussion I have before I even start scanning the resumes. Always check with the teams what exactly they're looking for, because it's no use if some team is very much interested in looking for Selenium. It's no use of interviewing a guy who has never seen Selenium. Right? So, and it does not make sense. But then the second thing is it also gives me an opportunity to understand what the project is and actually if they need that particular guy or not. So there has been cases where some teams have approached me saying I need guys in this particular expertise, and I asked them what is your project, and then they said no, we are working on this kind of thing, and I'm like, you actually don't need this kind of guy, right? Because the technology that you're asking won't fit into what your project currently states into. And then what you're talking about is a very future state architecture, and you probably might not even fit in there, because you never know when you will move into that particular technology. So what you will do with this particular hiring this team member within your team. So yes, that's the first thing. But from a resume perspective, as I said, it's pretty simple for me. So one is the technology that I'm looking into. So that's where they sell out as to what exactly they know. And second, I just look for 1 or 2 years of their experience, because I don't think looking at 10-year back of experience really makes sense for me, because probably they might have forgotten the project also, right? And even if they remember, that's something that they have worked a long time ago. But I am more interested in what they have recently worked on, and what how they've excelled from being at X position 10 years back and current, right? So we are always looking at the current trend. We really don't matter that you write your 10 years experience and then make a 12-page resume. For me, 2 to 3 pages, max 3 to 4. If your project really desires that, 3 to 4 is more than enough, and that's what I look for.
Right. So it's the recent 2 to 3 years that matters most.
True. Because that's what is the most freshest thing in your mind, right? So that's what you have majorly worked on. So it's much better to elaborate on that rather than elaborate on the whole 10 years of experience, in my opinion.
Right. Okay, so how do you generally structure your interviews? Like yours is an automation role. You want your person to know the coding in and out and script and everything, but a domain also keeps an important role in what you are doing. So if you are in OTC derivatives domain, or say in exchange traded products, do you want the candidate to also know about these products?
So frankly speaking, means my interview structure is pretty simple, right? So it's more about first knowing the candidate, but then as usual, I don't expect him to tell me about his 10 years of experience. I just expect him to tell me about 2 or 3 years of his major experience, or even some of his challenges that he has faced, because that's what we are looking for. Second, I think that's a place where an interviewer should even read what the job description is, right? Because to an extent that matters, right? Because let's say if I have asked for a specific skill set, that I think that's where the candidate should focus more on, when he's describing about himself, rather than telling me something that maybe I'm not interested in at all. He can just touch upon it, but describing it in details does not really make sense. So does not make really a lot of sense if he describes me the whole journey of 10 years. So he can just shorten that into 2 or 3 years and just describe where he started and where he's currently. Coming to the domain side, frankly speaking, I'm not much, I never dig someone on the domain side a lot. I think that's required if I'm actually looking at, more of a manual and less of an automation side. From an automation perspective, I feel it's the approach that is majorly required. So he needs to know how to approach a specific scenario rather than actually knowing everything about that scenario. So if you take my example, I've been working on different projects within the finance domain, but I hardly know the complete finance domain. But from an automation perspective, I know in and out of how things should work within a specific application. So I guess that's what really matters from an automation side. But yes, having a domain experience is always a plus, because that, as I said, that now the current roles, you really don't have something like only automation or only manual. You are a full package. You might even do development if you're interested in, because that's how the teams have evolved as of now. So it always gives a plus if you know that area around the domain side. But then I don't think it's a complete showstopper. And for me, it's never been a showstopper. So even if the candidate is not much aware of the domain, I really don't, grow him around that why don't you know this or why don't you know that.
Right. I've seen in many teams, like there are roles which are 50-50, like 50% of your time will be in automation and then 50% you have to do some manual tasks. Right. Right. So in those kind of role, do you think it becomes very important to know the domain as well as the tech side of it?
So as I said, the domain, if having a domain knowledge is never bad, but then it also depends upon how much you are interested in learning things, right? So irrespective of if you come, let's say from what you call a telecom domain, right? But if you're interested in learning the finance domain, there's nothing bad in it. But as I said, your attitude and your base around that should be very good, right? So if you're coming for an automation interview, at least you should have a base of an automation engineer and that, approach towards automation. And if you are ready to learn, I'm fine with that. I think learning is something that is your lifetime goal. You keep on learning new things, and it all depends upon how much interested you are in doing that. If you are not interested, then I don't think that you should ever change your domain. But if you're interested, I think you can always learn the domain within 6 months. That's not a big time. Oops. Wait. Yeah. Sorry.
Got the video back. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
I got a call in between.
Okay. So what in the technical ability, like looking at the technical side of things, so how do you structure your questions? Like the candidate should know scripting, data structure, Linux or say shell scripting? What specifically do you want your candidate to have?
So, right. So as I said, a lot of it depends upon what the project requirements are. Right? So that's where I first touch base with. But from a generic perspective, if he's coming from an automation point of view, then what his major automation skills are, he should be pretty aware of the scripting and some basic knowledge around the whole thing. Because I've seen, I've met with candidates, and it has been interesting that they have been working on automation projects, but when we ask them that exactly, let's say if you want to change this portion, what do you do in scripting, and then they suddenly come out and they say, no, we are majorly only executing these scripts and maintaining these scripts. We are not. And I'm like, why are you not discovering what's being written there? Why don't you try to change something if something is failing? But that's where I feel that if that kind of approach is there, or that kind of attitude is there, that's not
Okay, Anubhav. So if you specifically have to interview for your own team, right? So just briefly about the domain where your team works, like is it in front office, back office, or middle office? And what particularly technologies you expect your candidate to have?
Okay, so I basically work within the front office domain, right? And technologies include both Java and .NET. So .NET is minimal, mostly it's Java. And yes, we do a lot of Unix side scripting and on the PowerShell scripting. If I come to my specifically to my area of things, then yes, I'm looking majorly. I'll basically look for someone who has good Python scripting. One of the reasons being that we have moved a lot of our automation to Python. Second, yes, a good knowledge of APIs because we do a lot of API testing now, and that also is more of a good way to if you see the future stack, it's a very good way to explore things rather than just going on the UI side. A good hands-on Unix or PowerShell scripting is always good. As I said, right, that now automation is not just about doing some testing things. It's about everything within the team. Right? It's about growing your team and improving its performance. So a good hands-on with Unix or PowerShell scripting is good. So considering the current trend, I would always say go for Unix scripting because most of the servers are Unix based. You have very less servers around the Windows side. But then knowing PowerShell scripting is good if you have a lot of Windows servers because VB script, as Windows said, might die soon. So PowerShell is always better to have. So yes, those are some of the things. But yes, as I said, it's not just about Python. Means even if you know a different language, I'm pretty fine with that. One of the reasons being because I never believe that language is really a constraint for you. So if you want to do API testing, you can even do with Java. But then again, approach around those things should be pretty clear, right? So if we ask you that, you have to automate XS thing, you should have a very clear approach exactly around how you will do that. It's not about guiding. So there are a lot of guides who will guide you. That's not a big issue. If you have any issues with framework, there'll be a lot of people within the team or outside the team who will help you. But then you should be clear around what exactly you want out of it. So that's where you probably will need to explore the code. And from my perspective, that is very much necessary because it's not always good that you go to a developer and ask them that what do I expect out of this? What do I expect out of this? Now that's something, a learning curve for you, right? And it's also a good time for you to explore the code. So that gives you, a good opportunity to know what exactly is going inside the code. And maybe just from an API perspective, we are not asking you to actually go and see the business logic, right? We are just asking you to see what the APIs are and what kind of response. If you're getting a wrong response, or if you want a different kind of response, you can always go to the developer and ask him if, can we change this? And that even brings the teams closer. It's because at the end of the day, it's all about the teams. Right? An automation guy without a team's help can do nothing.
Right.
So yes, that's an area that I really focus on. So as I said, it's not just about Python or Java. It's more about how comfortable you are with any language, but then you should be comfortable in taking up what the current challenges are.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, so I just wanted to ask further on the technology side. Do you also have your scripts interacting with database, or what database do you want your
Yes.
candidate to know about SQL?
So from a technology point of view, again, knowing databases is always good, because whatever be the case, database will always be there within be it MongoDB, be it SQL, be it Oracle, right? Yes, but having an understanding of NoSQL is very good, because even we and a lot of teams within our area are moving into MongoDB. But we also have, like SQL or Oracle DB. So I think having knowledge of both is very good. One way that SQL language across different types, be it MS SQL Server, Oracle, be it Postgres, is pretty similar. But then if you come to the NoSQL side, that structure is pretty different from your SQL side. So it's good for the current candidates. I guess they should have a basic understanding of both of these. A very good, if they can, a very good query language within the SQL side, because a lot of times when you are even with automation, right, if there is an issue and you have to figure out what that issue is, you really need to go to the database. And then if you are just writing one single select query and you don't know how to write a join, takes a lot of time, right? And it's always good to reduce the time. So it's always good to reduce the time. If you know how to use variables, the same query, the same script that you have written within your SQL, you can use it across different areas. So yes, that's a good point, that yes, databases are really required, and I guess it's a must for anyone within the technology industry to know. And I would even suggest that having a good understanding of Excel or macros is pretty much a lot of help at times, because every time going to the database might not be easy, but then Excel has the power of doing a lot of things within the database, or anything, or any of the related technologies that are going in.
Great. Okay. So when one person takes multiple interviews, you always have few questions appearing in each interview, right? So you must also have few questions that you ask to many of your candidates. If it is okay, would you like to share few of them?
Okay, so my surprise questions are pretty weird or vague at times. It's basically to take candidates by surprise. It's never to really judge them on those questions, but it just brings out the attitude, how they approach. And one of my favorite questions has been around a very simple, that you have a web page and you have a box there, input box, right, and a submit button. So when you click on, you enter a value, you click on that submit button, a circle is drawn on the page. Now I want them to identify the logical and illogical errors within this particular case, right? And then second is, how do you prove to me that it's a circle, right? And at times, I get very, very funny answers to it. And obviously I know that I'm not looking for any major answers, right? I'm not looking them to exactly what they want to do. But my major idea is for them to give me answers like, what could be a logical test case for this. A very simple logical test case could be that you enter a value and the circle goes out of the screen. What do you do with that, right? Now you cannot prove to anyone that this is a valid circle, right? So from a logical perspective, that whole circle thing has gone wrong. So that should be a very logical value for the input box, right? That it should not go out of the screen. So because if it goes out, then it does not make any sense for the circle to appear. So that's what I'm looking there. From a proofing perspective, I do ask them, let's say if I have entered 6, right, and that should be, let's say, a diameter of the circle. How can you prove to me that the diameter is 6? And frankly speaking, the candidates really get confused with this, and they think that this is a very serious question. Though I have just asked, I'm just asking it for fun, because this is a surprise question. Nobody expects this kind of questions to come in. And the answers could be very simple, right? You could take out a printout and verify it. You can verify that it's a circle. You can even verify it using different tools. But then sometimes I get very weird answers that, we do the pixeling thing and something. I asked someone that, can you automate it? And he was, started automating it also. And I was like, these are some things that you should know. If you are coming for an automation interview, this is not something that you would automate or you would like to automate, Right.
Right. Mostly candidate takes it's like a question where they will be judged, so their answer has to be perfect. So they try
True,
their
true.
hard.
So see, yes. So as I said, right, this is not a technical judging question. This is more of an.
Okay. So uh, attitude also matters a lot, right? We have seen candidates who know all the answers, but we sometimes feel that, yeah, will he do the required work? Will he fit in the team? Or is his attitude good enough to, to make
Right.
team a team? So what your thought on it?
Yes, I think attitude is one of the major things, and if you see the the way companies are recruiting now, they have shifted this focus. So initially, it was all about technology. Now it's more about how exactly that person can fit into a team. And as with DevOps and Agile coming in place, team, the pod structure has to be very strong. So if you have a lot of individual players who are not exactly team players, the pod will never work. Right? So yes, that's where it makes a lot of sense. And as I said, right, when I'm questioning them or when I'm taking an interview, I also see the kind of the attitude that they showcase. And some of the questions, maybe they might be technical, but then it's more about seeing how much they are ready to take it up. And at times I like candidates who even ask me that I'm not able to answer this, do you have an answer for this, right? So I feel that is a good thing, that is never a bad thing, because accepting that you don't know something is what we always want, right? So we don't want a superman within the team, right? We want everyone to learn, to have that attitude to learn and ask. And once you have that attitude, that yes, this guy, if he does not know, he can approach someone to ask these things, and that way it helps you overall. So you might not give him all the hints about what the answer is, means you won't, I generally don't give them the answer, but I always give them a hint as to where they can find the resource, or what do they search in Google, and they might get an answer to it. But yes, attitude does matter a lot, and it really makes us team either strong or weak. So that's very much required.
All right. Uh, so anything at the end you want your candidate to focus on, or any advice you want to give to anybody who's looking a role in your team?
Okay, yes. So a basic advice I would give is and it's majorly around that you should be very clear around what your approach to a particular problem is, right? And once your approach is correct, so if you see when someone comes to me, and even if he does not know the complete coding, but if he knows how, even if he gives me a pseudo, right, that probably you can approach it this way, I'm very happy with it, because I feel he can learn coding very easily. It's if he has done something on VB script, he can do it on Python, or he can do it on Java also. But at the end of the day, it's the approach that matters, and it's the logical thinking that matters, right? And yes, I do even ask some questions around the logical area. And as I said, my circle question is a very logical thing. It's not really more of a weird thing. And one of my candidates, one of my, rather now he's my colleague, but that he used to joke with me that you sent me to space during my interview. And why was that? Because I asked him a question that there's a rocket launcher and you have to test it, right? How do you test it, and what do you think any defect or whatever you are raising issue, if you find, what kind of severity or priority will it be? And these questions nobody expects, because nobody's actually going to launch a rocket. But people need to understand that since this is a rocket and it can contain life, so even a simple bug will always be a high severity and a high priority, right? So that's where they really need to understand what severity or what priority really means in real life. It's not just about that you ask them, this, the company symbol is wrong, what priority will you give it? Now that's
Right.
something that everyone is prepared with. Now, questions that you are not prepared with is something I really feel means I really ask, and I love them to take that challenge and answer me that. So
Yeah, it
from my
brings
point of
them.
view, right?
Yeah, it lets them showcase like what is the logical way they would look at the question and how would they
True,
approach it. Right.
true. Because otherwise you get a lot of questions around high severity, high priority in everywhere, and everyone has summarized it. But then if you ask them a question which they really don't know what this.
So with this, we end our first interview with Mr. Anubhav Rawat. Uh, so if any candidate is looking for a role in his team, he basically need to know these script like Python scripting, PowerShell scripting. You need to have good knowledge of database. No SQL is preferred, so it would be an added advantage to know MongoDB, no SQL, and your attitude has to be right. Like your approach to a question should be logical. And final, be ready for surprise questions, because in your interview you may be asked to find solution or the logical bug that could develop in launching a rocket. So thank you very much for watching the podcast. Share it with as many friends, and people may benefit. People who are going to interview for HSBC may benefit from this. Thank you very much for watching.